Well, today's Royal Commission hearing is the first time a children's home has been put in the national spotlight. To discuss this a little more, I'm joined by Leonie Sheedy. She's the CEO of Care Leavers Australia Network. It's a group known as CLAN, which represents people who grew up in orphanages and foster care. Leonie Sheedy, how significant is this hearing?
It's very significant. It's the first time our nation has put the spotlight on a children's home or orphanage in this country, and there were over 800 orphanages in this country. It's a historic day, it really is. Yeah.
The specific focus has been on the Anglican Church's North Coast Children's Home at Lismore. You said that there were 800 orphanages in this nation. So do we assume, therefore, that hundreds of other children in many of those other institutions would have also been abused?
Thousands and thousands of Australians have lived with the trauma and the crimes that were committed against them at the bottom of their hearts, and many have died never sharing this story. So on one level it's a very momentous day, but it also is tinged with sadness because so many people are not alive to see this day.
This particular inquiry, as I said, is looking at a time period between the 40s and the 80s. Do you have evidence, or are you hearing anecdotally that some of this abuse may have continued in other institutions to much more recent days?
Look, we deal with elderly people, and the oldest person in CLAN is 96. So we certainly are aware of the children of care leavers who have ended up in care themselves because their parents weren't able to parent their children because they didn't know what it was like to be a mum or a dad, and it was very difficult for them to parent their own children. There are not orphanages anymore. People are in foster care, and sometimes they're in their own personal orphanage. And so we are aware of, abuse happening in foster care. I think people know that. But our concern is elderly people who've been left unsupported all their lives to deal with the trauma and the abuse that they endured as children.
So if you say that thousands of people would have been affected in these institutions, what is your group hoping will come from this Royal Commission?
I hope that the Australian community will be as conversant with our history as they are the stolen generations and the child migrants, that this is taught in schools, that governments and churches and charities are made accountable for the heinous crimes, that people are charged with the crimes and the cover-ups, that the churches and the charities and the state governments are compelled to contribute to a reparations fund to help repair people's shattered lives.
Are you also hoping for something akin to a national apology?
We've had a national apology, Kim, on it was our 4th anniversary last Saturday, and many Australians aren't even aware. When we talk about our apology, people always think that we're talking about the stolen generation, and people aren't even aware. And so last week when Kevin Rudd and all the other politicians talked about how they were so proud of Kevin Rudd's apology, many of us were so angry that, they're only proud of one apology. Once again, we're excluded. Why aren't all these politicians proud of the 3 apologies this country has given? And if you don't include our apology, what are you sending a message to us? You're once again invisible in your own country, and that we only care about one section of society that was separated from their children? From their family? I want to be treated equally in this country, and I want people to acknowledge that the damage that was done to every child in an orphanage or a children's home, whether you're black, white, or a Maltese or a child migrant, we all need to be given the respect that we deserve for what we endured in this country.
And you think that will come from the Royal Commission?
Oh, I'm sure it will, Kim.
All right, let's see if it does. Leonie Sheedy, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Well, the treatment